So I've said this on multiple occasions that I was never going to solely focus on fashion and fragrances, and that occasionally I would make videos branching out from those topics. And I have done that in the past. And last week I made a video about accountability, and I got some incredibly positive feedback about that. And it made me realize that although there is always going to be a part of me that will love doing my fragrance stuff and recommending great fragrances to people, there is so much more to every single individual than just one particular interest that they have. And with that in mind, I thought I would provide some follow up, some additional thoughts regarding accountability and masculinity in the world today. Drop a comment below and let me know what you guys are thinking. You are under no obligation to watch these videos if you only really care about the fragrance stuff. I completely understand that. But I would be doing myself a disservice and a disservice to how I want to present myself to the world in such a public venue like YouTube if I only ever spoke about one thing. I've dabbled and I've considered making separate YouTube channels for certain things, but I think ultimately I would rather just compile everything and all of my thoughts onto one channel, onto one platform, just for sake of simplicity. With that in mind, I'm going to share some more thoughts with you guys today, and I would love to have you along for the journey, but again, you are under no obligations to stick around. I just thought I would be doing my audience here a disservice if I didn't provide some context for why I am doing this video. I made a video talking about accountability and how young men in particular should take accountability for their own lives and their decisions and the choices that they make. And if they make mistakes, own up to them, own those mistakes, and use them to propel you forwards. That's effectively what I was trying to convey in the video I was recording last week. And I wanted to elaborate on that further today. We live in a world where the powers that be, the elite, the hierarchy, if you will, the people at the top of that hierarchy, they thrive, and their being in power is dependent on your inaction. And what I mean by that is, every time you make a choice to not do something, every time you make a choice to be neutral on something instead of standing firm, standing your ground, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum politically, the powers that be thrive on you being complacent, on you being neutral, and on your the stagnation of your agency. Now, relating back to when I was quite a bit younger than I am now, even though I'm still quite young, obviously, but we all make choices, and those choices, even the inconsequential ones, and I'm using the example here of me, not maintaining my friendships, some of my friendships when I should have, opting to stay at home or, chase women instead of, doing something meaningful and spending times with the people I genuinely cared about and I genuinely loved. That is, on a micro scale, that same level of inaction that the powers that be are dependent on you making. They want you to stay at home. They want you to get on TikTok. The government actually does not care about you being on TikTok. They may make a big show of it. Oh, let's outlaw TikTok. But they don't really care. They want you to be on TikTok. They want you to just mindlessly doom scroll. They want you to get on Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. They want you to just scroll through it hour, 2 hours, 3 hours at a time, because it stops you from actually engaging in the current narrative. It stops you engaging in what is happening in the world. Now, sure, you may occasionally stumble upon a TikTok of someone that's telling you something genuinely important, that's telling you something that you need to know. But are you actually going to watch that? Are you going to take the time out of your day to watch that and absorb it and use that in your life going forwards? Probably not. You're going to keep scrolling until you see some hot chick, until you see somebody like Sydney Sweeney promoting Madam Web in like a low cut top or something like that, and you're going to stop and you're going to focus on that, and you're going to forget all about the important stuff that you should be focused on right now. It is so easy in this world to just focus on a semi-naked chick on TikTok than it is to focus on whatever's happening around the globe. The Russo-Ukrainian war right now, these powers that be want you focused on anything but that. What's happening between Palestine and Israel and the Gaza Strip? The powers that be want you focused away from that. They want your focus anywhere except there, because all these Western nations, we're funding those conflicts. We're funding the Russo-Ukrainian wars. We're funding the war between Israel and Palestine. We in the West, not you and I per se, but the powers that be, are funding all of these terrible things. They're funding all this abhorrent action towards humanity. And we really owe the world and our fellow man, our brothers and sisters, more than that, than to just be complacent when atrocities are occurring every day, on the daily, on the hour, every hour across the world. Not only on a micro scale, like some sort of assault on a random street in Barcelona or something like that, or like that Spanish Brazilian couple that make travel vlogs around the world, and they were just gang raped, and I'm really sorry to call it grape. I don't want to get this video absolutely destroyed, but you can pretty much understand, read between the lines, take the G off, you get what I mean. And not only did that happen though, they got gang raped after they were camping at a beach overnight. They then got on Instagram Reels and they pretty much almost defended the actions of these people. They were like, "Oh, you know what? You shouldn't be afraid to come to India where this just happened. You know, don't judge the Indian people too harshly." And I agree, you shouldn't judge the Indian people as a whole. But if you examine the culture, this Spanish couple clearly weren't aware that the culture in India, the culture around the world, away from these Western countries, and the Western countries are terrible at the moment, what's happening across the West. But I can always guarantee that they weren't aware of these gangs that go around and assault people and take advantage of people in the most obscene, terrible ways. And again, I want to reiterate here, we really shouldn't be judging an entire group of people based on the actions of the worst people in that group. But it's about a culture here. I wish we lived in a world where people felt safe enough to travel and not experience these terrible things. And I get it. Everybody can sort of have some bad luck, have a chance encounter with somebody terrible. That can happen in your own country. That can happen anywhere. I'm completely cognizant of that. But it's the culture that these groups, these cultures within the culture that you really need to be worried about. So what I'm trying to convey is that we really need to focus more on that sort of unity between people rather than division. And we are in a world right now where division is just everywhere. Everybody's divided. Everyone is. The sad part is that I'm old enough to remember how the world used to be before all of this division took place. Before men and women were at each other's throats like they are now. Before social media came in and infected the world and pretty much threw everyone against everyone else. And the only good thing that it's allowing people to connect with others around the world and discuss openly about what's happening around the world and ways that we can combat it. Because right now, social media is a net negative. It is a detriment to society. And the only purpose that we can sort of derive from social media right now is something like this, where we're engaging with one another, where we're talking to one another. Hopefully we're able to come up with some conclusions about how we're going to fix things, because right now things need to be fixed. And I would hate to see the world continue down this path, this anti-life path, this almost total human destructive path. And that's what it feels like. That's what I believe is happening right now, is that we're heading to this sort of global catastrophe. And if it's not one big mega catastrophe, what's going to happen is that there's going to be a billion micro catastrophes, and that's going to equate to global annihilation, global apocalypse. It sounds dramatic. I know it sounds dramatic, but that's what's on the cards right now. That's what's happening. And the sad part about it is that you've got to wade through these negative waters to find the positive in things. It's sad that we have to discuss the atrocities that are occurring around the globe right now if we're ever to stand the chance, if we're ever to have any hope of preventing these things happening in the future. We're going to have to face these harsh truths. If we're going to have to face these harsh truths before we can take the action to make this world a better place, to make this world a more livable place for our children. And let's try and be a little more empathetic about our species. Let's try and be a little more empathetic towards one another, and let's try take some accountability for our actions and not give in to what the powers that be want. There are so many young men out there that have no drive, that have no purpose, that have no goal, that have no ambition, and they're just going through the motions. And I know the NPC term has been memed to death, and we all joke around about people being NPCs. Like you'll go on like TikTok or YouTube or wherever you watch your content on, and you'll see those clips of people that are just standing there doing nothing, that have no response to a situation. They've got no reaction to a situation.
Grab her! We're filming.
Grab her? What are you talking about?
Come on. Aren't you a good citizen?
What do you mean?
And you wonder, like, what happens to these people for them to be this way, to have no response, no reaction to these serious events that are going on around the world. And then you realize that is the majority of people. That is the majority. They have no response, no reaction. And I hate to use the term again, but the powers that be want this to happen. They want people to go around feeling nothing about anything, because if they don't care, they're not gonna bother to ask the right questions. They're not even gonna bother to make any inquiries or to question what's going on in the world. I want people, and young men in particular, to take accountability for how they live their lives. If you're not working, if you're on Centrelink, if you're on the dole, if you're on welfare, whatever you want to call it, you owe yourself more than that. You owe yourselves more than a handout. Even if you've got to work at a fast food place, even if you've got to work at McDonald's, even if your job is to take fries out of a deep fryer and to wrap hamburgers or whatever it is you want, whatever it is they're required to do at McDonald's, there is nobility in that sort of struggle. There is nobility in that. There is purpose to be found in that. And we live in a world right now where people want to take the easy way out. People would rather get paid to do nothing. They would rather get paid to sit around and play Xbox than to go do that job. Now, I'm not saying video games are bad. I'm not demonizing video games or anything like that, because video games are a legitimate art form. But that's a different topic for a different day. What I'm trying to convey is that through work, through finding purpose within your own self, you're going to not be lumped into that category of being an NPC, of being somebody that just stands idly by and watches the world become even worse than it is right now. I'm thankful to have a platform on YouTube. I'm thankful that I've got the ability to just record a video. I'm fortunate enough to be able to just record a video, record my thoughts, and share them with you here and now. I'm thankful for that. If you're in NEET, if you're not employed, if you're not in education or training, and you're questioning that, maybe you don't want your NEET bucks, maybe you want more than that, I would say start anywhere. Develop a resume. Go to Macca's, go to KFC. It does not matter. There is no shame in working. But there is shame in collecting a handout. And you know, the sad thing is, I'm not against the universal basic income. I believe in a universal basic income. I don't believe people should have to work their hands to the bone to be able to put a roof over their head. But I do believe that just sitting around doing nothing and collecting a handout when you could be outside, you could be working, you could be developing social connections. They say, and it's kind of cringy, that your network is your net worth. I actually agree with that. I've been making so many friends lately. I've been just going out of my way to talk to people, and you learn a lot by talking to people. And you've got to start approaching every interaction that you have with people as not transactional. What you have to do is you've got to start talking to people as though what they're saying matters. That's how you develop real connections. Even if you disagree with what they're saying, you've got to at least give people the platform to speak their heart, to speak their truth, as you might put it. So get out there, do some work, stop collecting the dolls, stop collecting welfare. It's different if you're on disability and you're genuinely disabled. I don't have anything against that. But I believe young men, they should work. I believe a young man needs to work. I also believe that work is great for building friendships. A lot of my friendships now, I've gotten through work. I've gotten them through meeting people while at work. Work is underrated, man. We can build connections. We can have these discussions. We can be open with one another, and we can figure out ways in which we can make the world a better place for us to live, and our children to live, and our children's children, and so on, ad infinitum. For as long as there is a world, for as long as we have a home, we have something to fight for. And I believe just making friends and being good people and being open to new ideas and new ways to explore, not just crapping on things that are the tradition just because they're old-fashioned. Just because something's old-fashioned doesn't mean it's broken. I think together we can really show that accountability. We can take action, make the necessary changes. And if you've gotten to this point in the video, if you haven't clicked away yet, I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to what I have to say. And I'm genuinely curious to see what you guys have to say. I want to hear your thoughts on this. And until the next video, my name is Marcel. Be good to one another. Use your intentionality. Take action. Employ your agency. And I'll see you guys around.